All right, we are live. You can go ahead.
Thanks, Jonathan. All right. Hey, Mike. So we're kicking off this week's community meeting for add-ons. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone, regardless if you're celebrating today, celebrating later, or having a beer by yourself. All are valid choices. So I wanted to kick us off today by recognizing a couple of friends of add-ons. We got a really great tweet to @MozAMO a couple of days ago from web developer Cynthia Pereira. She made a pretty awesome dynamic theme that we're loving. She was inspired by Sean Martell's Firefox Lights theme and added a couple of extra colors. I've got it installed. It updates like 5 times a day, and it's pretty groovy. I'm really digging that developers are starting to discover the dynamic themes API and really kind of having a lot of fun with it. So big shout out to Cynthia for letting us know about her awesome work. I also wanted to shout out to Sylvan and Casby7 for being rock stars on Reddit yesterday during a discussion about add-ons, add-on reviews for Firefox. Sylvan, in particular, you are like the most helpful, calmest person, I think, to venture into like online forums and de-escalate situations. So thank you so much for doing that. That was really above and beyond. So actually the bulk of the stuff I wanted to talk about today kind of related to what we saw play out on Reddit yesterday. And not that it was like super bad, but it does seem like this is a topic that has come up a couple of times since we launched post review. So back in the old days, we had developers had to submit an add-on and then wait for manual review before their add-on could be published to AMO. And the backlog was so great that it was causing a lot of consternation and a pretty bad experience for developers. So we switched over to a post-review system a couple of months ago. And now we're getting some comments from people saying, well, if it's not manually reviewed by a human, how can I trust these extensions on AMO? And I've seen this come up once before. I expect that we'll be seeing it again. So I kind of just wanted to, I don't know, bring it up as a group discussion about like the fact that we're still getting these conversations are still happening in the community. They're not really in our community space, but they're in like a high traffic area. And like, I don't know, talk about a good way of responding to it. I thought Sylvan did a really good job yesterday, but I know Kev talked to me yesterday and said like maybe we should be officially commenting on some of this stuff and we should be providing a broader explanation. So yeah, I just wanted to put that, I just wanted to see what y'all thought. Sylvan, I don't know, maybe do you want to give your impressions of what happened yesterday?
Yeah, the comments I've put on Reddit at the end, people know that I'm just a volunteer reviewer. Maybe having a real Mozilla answer, maybe in blog post by Yorye, for example, or something like that, that could really, people that could link to this blog post where it really explained in details how it works now. I know that we already got one blog post that talks about it in general. I don't know if going deeper could resolve this issue. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we were working on messaging for the 57 release, because that's the first time that we really started seeing this come up, we did have like a pretty short response that basically just said, we handle malicious add-ons the same way in post review that we did in the old system, which is if we find a malicious add-on, we take it down and blacklist it so that even if you have installed it, it's disabled and can't do any harm to you. Kev definitely thought that was not substantive enough to really quell anybody's fears. So he was thinking that we could actually like walk them through like the process. And actually, I wanted to ask Jorge about that because I thought Jorge's initial blog post introducing post review, I felt like that was pretty good without going crazy into the details. So I don't know, Jorge, like what are your thoughts? keep it broad or give them details.
I don't expect the people who are complaining about this sort of thing now would feel better if we give them more details. They are clearly unhappy that the add-ons may be published for some time without being reviewed, which is perfectly reasonable if you're like very security oriented. And the blog post is intentionally vague in some areas because we don't want to reveal too much of the process because that could make it easier to be attacked. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that discussion, at least I'm just reading that Reddit discussion, and really, I mean, really, the people who are complaining, they just needed confirmation of how we do things, and I think they got that, and I don't expect them to be happy about it.
Okay. So maybe it is somewhere in the middle where we have like someone from Mozilla, probably me or Kev, steps in with some version of like, this is in general what happens. Here's a link to the official blog post explaining this. Suck it. I mean, not suck it. Sorry, that was inappropriate. But, you know, just kind of like, that's where we are, friends. Chrome also has the like, you know, this is a hard problem for everybody to solve. So maybe we could do that going forward. So, okay, how does that sound to folks? So maybe I'll recommend that to Kev. Okay. The other thing that this kind of brought to mind was I am not really a Reddit user because I feel like I would spend all day on Reddit and never get anything done and then be unhappy. So are there a lot of contentious conversations about add-ons that happen in Reddit these days, like post 57? Do we need to put together like a more robust just add-ons FAQ?
I'm not sure. It's the subreddit Firefox there's a lot of people subscribe to it, more than 40,000, but there's not a lot of conversation compared to other subreddits. I don't know if, for example, the what we got on this course, for example, maybe it's would be more appropriate than putting some stuff on Reddit. I don't know how many users we got compared to the subreddit there.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about necessarily posting the FAQ to Reddit, but just like coming up with an FAQ for questions that frequently get asked on forums, and then we have like a fast like response to those. But that's a good point. Like, I can take a closer look at discourse and see what some of the frequently asked questions on discourse are, and then just get some sort of canned response. Like recently, I mean, at least from what I've seen, it's been a lot of people saying like, hey, my add-on stopped working when I upgraded to Firefox Quantum. What happened? And I'm like, welcome. And then I know Jorge gets a lot of like developer focused questions. I don't know if there's any common patterns there or if it's just.
I mean, there are frequent things, but overall, they're for specific questions.
Okay. And you feel like you've got that handled?
Yeah, I don't. Well, I mean, I generally know the answer, so I don't need I don't need canned responses, really.
Okay. Cool. Gosh, I can't wait to like one day just know the answers to people's questions and not need a canned response. That'll be great. Okay, cool. So if anything else comes up, like if anybody sees anything where there's a conversation and people seem unhappy and it seems like additional intervention is needed, yeah, please let us know. And if we do start seeing common themes, we might put together an FAQ for staff and probably like close volunteers and community members, just to have as a reference in case that would be helpful. Yeah.
I'm not sure how helpful the public FAQ is, because it might raise even more questions than we can answer.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we would publish it anywhere where there's high traffic. Like we might keep it on a wiki just to have like, you know, a reference, like just as a reference. But yeah, I don't think we would just say like, we wouldn't like go to the add-ons category on discourse and be like, here's an FAQ. Like, I don't think that would be super appropriate, especially because our community is so diverse and everybody has like very different needs and questions. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So speaking of FAQs, Sylvan, Andreas, Philip, and I just got out of what I thought was a really productive and helpful Q&A session about the post review process. So we're waiting for that video to render, and then we'll be sending it around to the add-on reviewer list. So this is part of our process for migrating all of our add-on reviewers over to the new post review system. So I'm really happy to report that almost everybody has made the move at this point and is permissioned into the new post review system. So we're just going to do a little bit of extra work catching up the rest of the team, and then we should have that box checked and have everybody up and running. So yeah, I thought there were some really good questions about the new process and add-on policies, and some really great feedback about some of our messages, which hopefully we'll be able to fix with some upcoming patches. Speaking of some of those upcoming patches, one of the things that I want to do to help improve the experience of like the first time you submit an extension to AMO or an extension's first submission to AMO, we put together, our documentation contractor, Richard, put together a little package of like, okay, so you've created an extension, what happens next? And it's just got some tips about like how to create an appealing listing and how to get in touch and how to get more involved with the community. So that was published to MDN, I think early this morning. So if you all want to take a look at it and just let me know your thoughts, that would be great. What my plan is that in the email, in the template email that goes out to developers when they submit, we would include a link to this site so they could see the full list and not have the email be like forever long. So if there's anything that I missed or if anything looks weird, I'd love to hear about it so we can just make it like a good resource for folks who want to get more involved or who want to know, I don't know, all of the many ways they can get involved. Richard's been working on some other documentation, which I don't know about off the top of my head, but we've got like some pretty, we've got some pretty good stuff being built out on MDN right now. Something that Amy is trying to figure out is if we can get our own documentation instance set up for the developer hub, because MDN really just wants to be like the resource for all web developers and not just Firefox specific. So if we can host our own documentation system for the AMO Dev Hub, then we could kind of like have free run of how we handle our documentation and also like what documentation we have available, which I think offers some pretty good opportunities. So who knows, this might not happen, but it seems like the folks who have the code for MDN are open to sharing it with us. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe Amy's going to be mad because I spoke too soon about that. I'm not sure. Cool. Any questions about documentation or messages? All right, neato speedo. So I also wanted to give everybody a quick update about some upcoming changes that we have that we're going to see in the add-ons ecosystem. We do have some planned communications going out to targeted groups about this, but thought it would be helpful to just kind of run through this as a group. So the beta channel is set to be deprecated. I think that patch was just submitted. Andreas, maybe
Sorry, can you repeat? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to freak you out. So the first thing that's coming up is that we're deprecating the beta channel.
Yes, that's coming very soon, later this month. Communication went out, patches have landed, and I think we are aiming for hiding them from the submission, from the listing sometime next week, late next week.
Awesome. There's been some good conversation on Discourse from folks who have been using the beta channel about what to do now that the beta channel is going away. Jorge, do those look like productive conversations?
Yeah, I mean, most people are just asking for a way to redirect the betas to their new channel. But since it's an unlisted channel, that's not really something we would allow due to policy security reasons. So what we're telling developers is what we said in the email, I think, which is you just want to notify your beta users through the add-on that they should switch to the new channel, and they have to do it manually, which I understand is not great, but it's just a safe way to do it.
Okay, cool. I think one of the things that I learned from sending that communication out was that it would be, if we are planning on like a deprecation change, we might want to start a discourse thread to just point people to if they have any questions or any feedback. I think that might, because I don't think I expected any response to the beta deprecation email, and then I saw like a couple different threads spring up, and I was like, oh, it would be super cool if we could just throw them all in one place.
Yeah, there's a blog post planned after the changes Andres is working on now land.
Okay.
So I guess next week I'll publish that, and yeah, we can set up a discourse thread to go along with that.
Okay. Awesome. And we'll see if that invites more abuse to discourse. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, and then jQuery 2.x is getting deprecated, so we are giving that folks a 6-month warning. Andreas, you're owning that email. You want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so jQuery 2.x is has been unmaintained for a while by the jQuery team. It's also not, let's say, not the most secure library in that version anymore, because obviously as time passes, people find stuff. And so we would like to upgrade everyone to jQuery 3.x, which is still maintained. And so yeah, we try to identify all developers that use jQuery 2.x. Communication will go out later this week, I think tomorrow. And then, as Caitlin said, there will be a 6 months grace period where everyone can still use jQuery 2.x. The linter will start warning about jQuery 2.x when we find it, and around September, starting of September, we will flip that warning into an error, which means that new submissions will automatically be denied, and you at that point you have to upgrade to jQuery 3.
And will that also impact updated versions? So like if you have a listed extension and you update, but you still have jQuery 2.x, will you get rejected? Okay.
Yeah, it affects every file you upload.
Okay. Okay, awesome. And then Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about unpacked extensions deprecation? And I don't know, could you tell me what an unpacked extension is?
Sure. So most extensions in the web extensions ecosystem are packed extensions. That is, they're a file name that ends in a .xpi format, which is really just a zip file that contains all the extensions, the manifest, and all the JavaScript, CSS, HTML images. And that's how most extensions are loaded by Firefox. There is one way to load an unpacked extension, which an unpacked extension is simply the unzipped version of that XPI file into a directory structure on your file system. That can be loaded via the Windows registry, which is a type of side loading. That is, it's not installed from AMO. Starting with release 62 of Firefox, we're no longer going to support the side loading of unpacked extensions via the Windows registry. That is, you cannot create a Windows registry entry that points to a directory to load your extension. You must point to the XPI file. So we still will support XPI or side loaded extensions via the registry, but it must point to the XPI file, not the directory. And again, that starts in Firefox 62, which right now is scheduled for August 21st of 2018. We will continue to support it up to that point. And one important point to be clear on here is that for development purposes, we still support loading an extension via directory. So you can go into About Debugging and temporarily load an extension that way by going into your file system point in directory, or you can use the WebEx development tool to load a web extension via files in the directory. So those, for development purposes, we're still supporting directory support, but for publishing and released extension purposes, all extensions must be installed either via AMO or sideload as an XPI file.
Okay. Thank you.
Got a question on that. Does this affect end users that already have unpacked extensions loaded into, let's say, Firefox 61? They update to 62. Will those extensions get removed automatically?
Yeah, removed or disabled, that's unclear at this point. So we're, like Caitlin said, we're starting a campaign to email users. We'll do dev add-ons, email lists. We'll start a discourse thread so that we can point people to that. We'll also land telemetry in Firefox to try to identify. Right now, all we can identify is either regular extensions or side-loaded extensions. We don't have the resolution to see if the side-loaded extension is loaded via the Windows registry and points to a directory. So we're going to land that telemetry by 61 so that when Firefox 61 is released, we can find out how many and who is still using a directory loaded side-loaded extension. And we can contact those developers directly, because when you do upgrade to 62, that add-on will stop working at that point.
Yeah, so we have some, so like Mike said, we've got some general messages going out because we're unable to create a targeted list at this point. So yeah, we will ultimately be able to get that targeted list. So we're just going to try to have as broad coverage as possible in the meantime to help make sure that people stay in the loop. Yeah. So that's what we have as far as upcoming changes in communications are concerned. So at this point, I just wanted to open up the floor to any other questions or comments. Sweet. Okay. Neato. We have some really great events coming up. A lot of them are in India, but our community in Japan is having their very first web extensions meetup coming up soon to talk about web extensions and how you can create functionality similar to what legacy extensions had using the web extensions API. So I think Piro is involved with this, Piro, the developer of tree style tabs. So really excited to see some engagement from our Japanese community of developers, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of that. All right, awesome. Well, that's gonna wrap it up. Happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Thanks again for joining us today. We'll be back in another 2 weeks to talk about more great things in the add-ons community. And until then, take care, and we'll see you around the web.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.